Welcome to another episode of Forno and Forum. My name is Nat Garofalo. I'm your host, and today we're going to be making one of not only my favorite recipes, but my girlfriend's favorite recipe that I make for her for dinner. I've actually made this one for her birthday, and she enjoyed it quite a bit. So I'm not sure if you can see it from down here just yet, but today's episode, we'll be making a rack of lamb. And just like anything that you make, or any of the recipes we have here on Forno and Forum, the quality of the outcome is going to depend solely on the quality of the ingredients that are going into it. So this particular rack of lamb I got from Pete's Fresh Market. They usually have a pretty good selection of good quality meats. But if you have access to farm to table kind of stuff, or a farmer's market in the spring or summertime, if you're in colder climates, if you have access to a rack of lamb from that kind of a resource, I highly recommend that, because again, the quality of the ingredient that goes into the dish, the better the dish is going to be. Today it's pretty simple. We don't over season it or do anything crazy with it. The seasonings for this is going to be kosher salt, black pepper. I'm a little bit too lazy to grind it fresh, so the pre-ground stuff is fine for me. Oregano, parsley flakes, garlic powder, and a little dash of curry powder for just a little bit of just a little something extra in there for you. You can leave the curry powder out. Usually I do. Today I'm kind of experimenting a little bit and throwing some curry powder on there. And the reason why I'm going with the garlic powder versus actual garlic cloves is I want to have a nice little crust on the outside of the lamb. If you're doing the garlic cloves, obviously the flavor is going to be in there. It's going to be pretty intense. It's going to be very flavorful, but you're going to miss out on that crust, which is what we're aiming for with this particular recipe, is a nice, almost barbecue style kind of bark on the outside. As far as how this is going to cook, our target temperature is 125 to 130. The oven is preset to 450. To give you kind of a gauge, it's going to cook for about 30 minutes. But again, always focus on your temps. So I've got my meat thermometer here. So if it reaches your target temp in 25 minutes, it reaches it in 25 minutes. If it reaches your target temp in 40 minutes, that's where it reaches it. Now, like I said, our target temp is going to be 125 to 130. We're not going to pull it at 125, 130. We're going to pull it probably about 115, 120, because it needs to rest to allow the juices to reincorporate back into the lamb. And during that time that it rests, the temperature is still going to rise. So if you pull it out at 125 or 130 and let it rest, then it's going to be overcooked. What we're aiming for here is medium rare. So that's what that 125, 130 will give you. It'll give you a nice medium rare. So we're going to go ahead and get started as far as getting the ingredients or the seasonings put on the lamb. And I'm using a roasting pan. If you don't have a roasting pan, that's fine. A baking dish will suffice. But you want something where the rack of lamb, preferably if you can be elevated off of the surface slightly if possible. Again, it's not like a big crazy deal breaker if you can't. It's just an ideal situation. Now, this recipe is primarily focused on the seasonings and the flavor for the lamb, not necessarily the method. So you can replicate this particular seasoning. The first time I actually did this approach as far as the seasonings was actually on my smoker, which is why it's got more of your barbecue style bark as opposed to your traditional lamb seasonings. All right. There's our little guy. So I'm going to go ahead and continue seasoning this guy up with our salt, our pepper, our garlic powder, our oregano, our curry powder, parsley, and I think I may have said the black pepper, but I'm not sure. I'm going to try and rinse my hands here without knocking down the camera, but I don't think that's actually possible. So I'm going to come bring you guys over this way while I wash my hands. And it's actually a nice little close-up on me washing my hands, so you guys can actually see that I'm a responsible chef. Well, you guys actually get to take a peek of Otis. That's Bethany's paper towel holder. It's a pig that she has named Otis. All right. All right, so we'll show you the rack of lamb here real quick, and you'll see it's just kind of sitting there on the roasting pan. Probably I'm going to try and center it a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and get the seasoning put on here for you guys. Okay. I like to start with the kosher salt, because for me the salt is the most important seasoning that's going on in this thing. It's what's going to mingle with the natural flavors of the lamb. So the salt's the most important. So you want to salt the outside pretty liberally. Again, we're taking kind of like a barbecue approach here, so this is going to be a nice little crust on the outside. Okay. You may notice that the kitchen behind me is a little bit different. I am in new lodgings at this point. I'm in an apartment. Got a new place, so new kitchen. So it took a while for me to kind of get used to how the layout was here, which is why there was a bit of a gap in between episodes. We're going with our black pepper. Now, if you've got the patience to freshly ground your black pepper, that's fine too. And as far as the salt, there's not really like a specific measurement for this, because your rack of lamb may be larger than this one. Just you want to make sure that the outside, the fat cap, is nice and liberally salted with kosher salt. And it's kind of the same goal with the pepper. By the time the pepper is on, you should barely see the fat. That's kind of what you're going for here. Now I'll bring you back in so you can see what I'm talking about. So you can kind of see how the salt and the the salt and the pepper have kind of covered up the fat and kind of have made it a little less visible than it was when we initially began. From here, the order isn't so much important. So you can season it how you prefer. I'll go with the garlic powder next, because for me the salt, the pepper, and the garlic are the most important flavors for this, and I don't want the garlic to be lost when we turn it over. Next, we're going with the oregano, and if you're concerned about the measurements, I'll have measurements for you in the description below, along with the directions. We're going with our parsley flakes next. Now you'll notice I didn't put any olive oil or anything on the outside, simply because the lamb itself is going to generate more than enough fat, so we don't need to add anything additional to it. Finally, a little dash of our curry powder. And again, like I said, this particular seasoning, if you want, you can eliminate it for your trial at home. Normally I don't put the curry powder on it. I just wanted to experiment a little bit today. And if you want to kick this up, normally I would. Today I'm not feeling that. But if you wanted to kick this up, you can throw a little dash of crushed red pepper on there if you wanted to. That's perfectly okay. So I'm going to try and pat this in without knocking over the camera. Okay, we're going to turn this guy over, and we're going to season the other side. Now, typical with anything that you're trying to cook, you want to try and keep one hand clean and the other hand for the dirty stuff, like flipping things over. All right, our salt on this side. Black pepper. Our garlic powder. Our oregano. And right now I'm just trying to keep my left hand away from like anything that's important here, just touch the lamb. Our parsley flakes. Okay. And finally, a little dash of our curry powder. Now the way that this is going to cook, I'm going to flip it back over so that it's fat cap up. No particular reason, I just like to cook it that way. I'm sure some folks out there have some sort of documented scientific reason of why it needs to be fat cap up. For me, I just like to cook it that way. I want I just like how it looks in the oven that way. So you can cook it however you like. Okay, and remember, we're going to use our meat thermometer for this. Our goal is going to be, again, like I said, now the internal temp for when we're serving is going to, again, 125 to 130. We're going to pull at about 115 to 120 because it needs to rest, and while it's resting, the temperature is going to continue to rise. Okay, so this guy is going to be ready to go in the oven right now. When you put your meat thermometer in, what you're looking for, obviously you got bookends on the rack of lamb. What you're going to want to do is go into one of the bookends pretty far, because you want to be deep enough inside to make sure that the entire rack of lamb is at the appropriate temperature. So we're going to go ahead and get this put in the oven, and then we'll be back in roughly about 30 minutes or so. All right, welcome back. It's about that time for us to take our lamb out of the oven so that it can rest and come up to temperature. Again, our goal we were looking for is about 120 to take it out. Right now it's at about 122. So go ahead and grab this guy, pull it out, and then it's going to rest the remainder of the time. You'll probably see on the stovetop here, maybe, I'm cooking up some other items for dinner this evening. We're having, in addition to the lamb, we're having some some rice with some Middle Eastern style spices, and we're having some rapini, which is a very common dish that we have here. As I almost tip over the camera, actually I did tip over the camera. It's a common dish we have here around the holidays. Usually have it with sausage. Today I'm experimenting a little bit and pairing it with the lamb. I think the flavors should go okay. Rapini, in case you haven't had it, some folks know it as broccoli rabe. Us Italian folks, we know it as rapini. So we're going to go ahead and get this cooked up, and this is what we'll be serving it with. I'm going to get the lamb nice and foiled, but in the meantime, we'll do that, and we'll be back in a little bit. Welcome back. It is now time to slice and serve our lamb and the rest of our dishes for this evening. Again, like I mentioned, we're making some rapini and some rice, some basmati rice to go along with our lamb. But now is the time to slice and serve, so we're going to show you this guy real quick. Hopefully it turned out okay. Moment of truth for us. Again, this guy was cooking at about 450, and our goal was going to be about medium rare, which was going to be an internal temp of 125 to about 130. And here's what we're looking at for our finished product. Cut a few more for you so you can kind of see these guys. And then I'll show you a plating too. The hardest part with slicing these guys sometimes is finding that groove with the bone. Yep, this is what we're looking at. I'll get these on a plate real quick and show you. Yeah, lamb is slowly becoming one of my favorite things to eat and to make for myself as well as for my girlfriend. She really likes the lamb. All right, here's what we're looking at with our roast rack of lamb. Again, you can do this in your smoker as well or on your grill. We've got some rapini and some rice. The ingredients and the recipe and the instructions for the lamb will be in the instructions. The rapini and the rice, not yet. That's going to be on its own episode in the future. Again, this was a roast rack of lamb. Simple seasonings, cooked it to a medium rare, 450 in the oven. Hopefully you enjoyed this recipe and you enjoy making it at home as well. Hopefully you tune in for future episodes of Forno and Forum for all of our additional recipes. Please hit the like button at the bottom, subscribe, and if you decide to make this at home, leave a comment and tell us and let us know how your version of this rack of lamb turned out. Again, thank you very much for tuning in to Forno and Forum.